Every day I hear from people who say that they want to write a book. But did you know that less than 1% of people who say they want to write a book actually write a book? My name is Brian Dixon, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5-step process that we teach at Hope Books to help you finally write your book. So let's dive in. First step of writing your book is being clear on your XYZ statement. Your XYZ statement is the person, the problem, the promise. I help X overcome Y so they can Z. So who is it that you want to help with your book? Like, your book is not for you. Your book is actually for someone else. It's for your ideal reader. So what I like to do is think about where I was stuck 3 years ago. So for you right now, whenever you're watching this video, think about where you were stuck 3 years ago. And that's who you're writing for. You're writing for you 3 years ago. Get specific. Where were you living? What were you struggling with? What did your financial situation look like? What did your relationships look like? What did you dream about? What did you desire? Where did you feel overwhelmed? That's the X in the XYZ. Then there's the Y. The Y is the big problem. Be very specific about the problem. I work with a lot of faith-based authors, and what they talk about is, I just want to help people get close to God. Okay, great, but what's the actual felt need? What's the problem? Is it anxiety? Okay, great. Anxiety about what? The more specific you are, the more your reader will find your book and say, this book is for me. Specificity is the key. Your X is the person, the Y is the problem, and the Z is the promise. What is the promise? After somebody reads your book, what do you want them to think, feel, or do at the end? That is step one. XYZ. Can you see how that would give you so much clarity to focus on your book and actually getting your book across the finish line? That's the power of the XYZ. In fact, if this was valuable to you, go ahead and click like and leave a comment to let me know that this helped you, because there's still 4 more steps to go. Okay, let's go. Step number 2 is to write your transformational tale. Other people have called this an outline. It's actually not an outline yet. It's more of like the narrative flow of where you're trying to help them go. So it's really the prison, the promised land, and the path. So chapter number 1 is the prison. Where were you stuck specifically? Tell us that story. That's the beginning of your transformational tale. The final chapter is the promised land. This is where they end up after they have followed your process. And now that narrative arc, that transformational tale, is the path. What did you do first? What did you do second? What did you do third? Walk them through the path from the prison to the promised land. We call that the transformational tale. And that's step number 2. Now, clearly you can see how much clarity you're getting, right? You're getting so much clarity about your book because you know who it's for, the problem you address, the promise you offer, and you know the structure of it. The prison in the beginning, the promised land at the end, and the path to get there. So step number 3 for your book is the DCO, the detailed chapter outline. What I like to do is to find 3 books that have sold over 1 million copies or 100,000 copies in your niche. In other words, books that help the person you want to help deal with the problem that you want to help them with. Okay, so these are probably going to be some of the best sellers in your category. So once you do that, find those 3 books. Then what you're going to do is you're going to turn to chapter 5, 6, or 7, somewhere right in the middle. And I want you to analyze their chapter structure. How do they structure the chapter? Do they start with an inspirational quote, and then they tell a story, and then they give some teaching, and then they give some discussion questions, and then a journal prompt? Like, what is the process that they deliver the content in the middle of that chapter? Okay, so we call that the DCO, the detailed chapter outline. Now, generally, a DCO, generally it's going to have about 5 sections. 5 sections. So for example, if you take like a John Eldredge book, a Lisa TerKeurst book, a Craig Groeschel book, open it up to chapter 5, you're going to see, oh, he always starts with a quote in the beginning, then a funny story, then some teaching, then some clear steps, then discussion questions. What I want you to do is I want you to get index cards and map that out. He starts with a quote, I need a quote. He starts with a teaching, I need a teaching. Then he has some action steps, I need some action steps.
And I would recommend doing that for 3 books. And what you're going to find is a pattern. You're going to find a pattern. Most of the books that you're looking at that have sold a lot of copies have a very clear structure that they follow in every single chapter. So you create your detailed chapter outline for one ideal chapter, which brings us to step number 4, writing your model chapter. You're going to take these index cards, let's say these 5 index cards, and you're going to actually write a perfect middle chapter, probably chapter 5. So you look at your transformational tale, you look at the paths in your process, pick one of the middle steps in the path, and you write that chapter 100%, like as well as you possibly can. You perfectly write that chapter, editing it, developmentally editing it, copy assisting it, checking the spelling, putting it through AI to say, can I clean this up anymore? I mean, you make the best chapter possible. That's step number 4. You give it to friends, you give it to beta readers, you get people to review it. It almost feels like a standalone article. It is so good. It's like literally your best work. And then step number 5 is do it again 11 more times. Do you get it? So you write the perfect chapter, and then you use the perfect chapter to write other perfect chapters. That's the process to making this happen. You can do this. These are the 5 steps of writing your book. Now, of course, there's a lot more involved: editing, formatting, marketing, printing, publishing, distribution, layout, and more. And that's what we're here for at Hope Books. Go to hopebooks.com to learn more.